morning, everyone, and thanks for joining me. Before we start, could you please put your name in the comments because I'd like to know who's joined me. Plus, I want to make it you to make it easy for me to contact you. For one person states at the end, somebody will be chosen to work with me in a bonus 30-minute Zoom session working one-on-one with me. So that would be a great start. So and I want to start with a question. Why is it that two characters from two years both have similar experience, similar legal expertise, have similar clients, and yet one becomes a person everybody trusts in the room? Clients, they turn to them in different matters. They, their colleagues look to them because they recognise that their judgment matters. Person that people look to because when things get messy, they're the ones who know what to do next. And people assume that the answer is, well, I must be better at law, or they've got more legal experience, or they're just naturally better at leading others and practicing law. And for a long time that can make sense. Because the legal profession that has always rewarded legal expertise and experience, knowing more law, preparing law, having a stronger argument, a stronger case, finding the answer, winning more cases, and of course all those things do down in practice, and they always will. But at a barrister or senior lawyer level, almost everyone is technically or the technical experts in the area of practice. So the question becomes, if legal experience and expertise is expected, what creates a difference in you? What gives you a legal education? What makes somebody trust you? And that's where the gap lies. Because when I speak with barristers and senior lawyers, the challenges that they describe are really, oh, I just have no or I don't have enough experience. That's early in the career. What they're saying are things like, flat out. I'm constantly switching between matters, client demands, team demands, putting up lines all day. I don't have enough time to think and do all the hard work. It feels like practice is all consuming. And if I stop, it's all my or I feel like I'm reacting all day instead of operating the way that I want to. Or everything comes back to me as a leader because delegation, that absolutely terrifies me. Or I'm constantly comparing myself to others and I'm feeling like I'm not good enough, I'm coming up short. And I know that I can do better, I do want to do better. And what makes it harder is that being busy, having a very full calendar can feel like, well, that's evidence that things are working really well. You're in bed. You assume people trust you. Clients with your advice, and people rely on your judgment. And that's what you spend years and years doing. So it's busy, it's hard. The legal profession is practice. The question isn't whether am I busy or not busy. The question is, are you consistently operating at your best? What is it? Because as you become more senior, the pressure is no longer only about your excellent quality in your work, but your judgment, your decisions, your presentation, it's your ability to resolve conflict, your ability to lead people. And underneath that, there's something most successful battles in areas of legal behind you guys. It feels like there's less room to because clients rely on your judgment. Colleagues are too. The court relies on your judgment. People expect you to know what you're doing. And every decision you make under pressure either deposits into or withdraws from the reputation he lost, and he lose will. But what most senior lawyers want isn't an easier lawyer. They don't want to lower their standards. They don't want less responsibility. Because that's probably not what they have to say. They want to upgrade and be valued as a trustee, not just as a corporate expert. They want more time to think to their best work, to make decisions, and they don't want to do something else. They want to have more control of how they run the campaign. They want to be able to handle challenging, difficult people in the workday and situations in life. And those are conversations. The mere kind of changes, seems leadership is past performance, not just how are we seeing to do it. Who has more good awareness? Who has a more lucrative practice? Who's in a serious life? And who's made a long I don't myself, judgment, and I've operated in a way that's and that's the identity most of these want to do. Someone who you trust, not just for what they know, but who they are, how they operate. That's what it's and here's the reason most marriages and lawyers if I keep doing more legal reputation, getting more expertise, more experience, more years, more education, more value. This shit. That reputation is real, but it's not the one that's going to do. As you become more senior, there's a second reputation forming on its own. Your reputation is real. Hey, what I don't appreciate. Your judges, your treatment, your leadership. That isn't good for legal experience. It's not good for legal experience. And most lawyers and barristers don't do it. And that is more good now because AI is such a play in the world. Much of the conversation around AI in law is which AI will change law. The big question is, as legal information becomes faster and easier to access, what makes you more valuable? What makes you more trusted? At that level, at a senior level, your advantage isn't just having all of the answers. It's the decisions you make that things are clear, you're not sure. How you communicate with people who disagree, how you resolve conflict, how you perform, when that pressure exists. How people experience working with you. And the question is, if you really refresh, how do you build to a new future instead of building for the old? Not running backwards and anything in the changes that happen in law, but the changes that you set about making yourself. President Buckline taking the opportunity to build those skills that make you more valuable and trusted. And that's exactly what we're talking about. I'm a barrister with a background in litigation. I no longer accept litigation risks, and I'm advanced trained mediator and client, and I accept litigation risks as well as mediation. What I've noticed when I'm working with barristers and senior lawyers and law systems, people struggling with lacking intelligence or legal knowledge. They're struggling with trust and confidence that nobody has been. How they prepare, how they read under pressure. And that's what I think we do. For me, this started long before I came to work. I'd always been interested in having higher people as opposed to those who achieve a higher level and don't consistently operate. So I wanted to know, and I did a lot of study from when I was 18 years old, is to how do they make decisions? How do they respond under pressure? How do they communicate? How do they resolve conflict? How do they build? They're not able to do it. Like every marathon, I really had to focus on developing the skills and experience and the professional awareness of senior professionals. I had to learn law to a much different level. I had to learn about evidence and arguments and strategy and advising clients. But as I practiced as a barrister, I worked with stewards and email, advising barristers, senior lawyers, and law firms. Something became increasingly obvious. The professions were occasions. People who are intelligent, they're driven, they're ambitious, they're experienced. They're technically excellent. That's what they've achieved. But high achievement and high performance, they're not the same thing. Achievement is what you achieve. What you build and achieve. Performance is how you operate. And that's where I can focus. How do boring, successful, expert, technical lawyers and barristers prepare for the legal and high And we know that high achievers, they do have legal expertise, they do have legal experience, they do have status, they win awards, they get promoted into leadership roles. They have leaders, they get successful practices. That's all achievement. But high performers, they operate as they're daily operations. They have everything that a high achiever has, plus they have systems that run because they know they can't hold everything together. They have daily habits in place that keep their standards high and consistent, so they're not operating all on some days and other days. They have those difficult conversations early because they don't want small projects turned into large ones. They stay focused, they stay in control, and they appreciate these clients. And they do perform their best consistently, persistent growth and performance level. Even when conditions aren't ideal. They build and they lead high performance teams. People who don't just build and partner, but also bring solutions to problems. So that's the performance gap. These are the skills, the high performance skills, are the skills that we need in the development. So let me show you what I mean. Most lawyers and barristers who are professionals, because they're high achievers, that's what we achieve, that's what we build. And that's what we achieve in the home. Yeah. It's an area of life. But the things that got you here, the knowledge and experience, they are the foundations for the achievement. Eventually, it becomes senior, it means change, that will become more complex. The expectations increase, the problem become bigger, the decisions carry more weight, the stakes are more costly. And more of you and your role depends on a system that runs your people the standard of quality speak about the demonstrate you are able to learn and stay focused and even try not reacting to everything that's going on around you for you to feel you resolve the conflict in a way that the future reputation of themselves. So that's where we can have a legal expertise. I think it's a job that the other people is important, but correct those stories about that's where the performance gap is. Which we're expected, every lawyer is expected to be with an expert. But how you operate at a high level consistent under pressure, what's your advantage? And You were not just those skills, and analytical skills. So through the work that I've done and how I, operate through the mediated communications and advisory and so on, I found that I can systematically develop three areas. And the first one is fear. Because most lawyers and barristers, they spend their entire careers learning how to handle their work or gain experience in preparing their work. The high performers are also prepare themselves and for what their clients. The second is perform, because one thing to know what to do, and it's a completely different thing to do it, and do it consistently under pressure. That's a different skill set. And thirdly, is lead. Because when you're in a leadership role, and you can put your leadership role, our success depends not just on your own performance, but on the others perform too. So as I said, the first skill is prepare. Now, when I say prepare, I know what most barristers lawyers will do. Yeah, of course, I have to prepare the case. I have to prepare the brief, I have to prepare the methodology, the evidence, the authorities, the strategy, questions, cross-examination, I have to prepare the advices. Of course, they are essential in practice. Legal preparation is essential. We're working great lawyers if we don't get that preparation. But you don't become as, as I said, you don't become a successful barrister or lawyer without having those skills. You spend your entire career learning how to prepare. But how much time do you spend preparing who you are and how you do things and how you deliver your best work? Because ultimately, your expertise, your performance comes through you, who you are, your judgment, your decision making. Your ability to listen and resolve conflict, your ability to communicate those influence others, your ability to stay in control of instant your ability to lead teams. And all of these things are affected by fundamental skills that who you are, how you operate, what are your habits, what are your systems. And this is where high performance in other situations approach things differently. How do you figure that out on the sport? We're in the midst of the World Cup, and by the time someone reaches a World Cup final, nobody is questioning whether they have the ability to play soccer. They already heard that right to get there. But the highest performers, who you would imagine, and that know something different, and they know something really good. The moment where they shine is not won in that moment. The moment reveals the preparation of the performance. What their habits, what are their standards, their routines, their recovery, their review process, what are the systems that go around them. If you don't want rules, that hearing, negotiation, mediation, fight conference, or leadership challenge simply reveals what is the preparation of the time before it. The legal preparation, like who you are, and how you operate. What has been doing before you get into those meetings. And that's why preparation is not just about knowing what to do. It's about creating the conditions, the habits, the systems, so that you can operate at your best when you're confident. So let me show you what this looks like in practice. I was working with a senior lawyer who was on the outside, looked like she was trusted in the practice, busy from the outside. Most people were looking in, they were thinking, yep, everything is working really well. But the issue wasn't really the issue was that everything you do about her operating perfectly every day. And she said, I need to set what I don't get to my football to the end of the day. I have to sacrifice my support to me. My team needs to do everything. This is my responsibility. And I'm letting on the slide because I just, okay, I didn't want making a mistake on our conversation. She said, I know I can do better than this. And I just cannot show that I'm not living my life. I really that's the thing that I have. So what was she doing as a result? Working really long hours, over preparing, putting in lots of effort every day, not trying anything new, doing that same furrow, working year after year, holding everything together herself. The question was, how do we make her a better leader? That's not the question. She's already in the leader. The question was, how do we build the systems, the habits, the standards that allow her to consistently operate like the legal skills and experience because of the role of that. For example, that her teams took over responsibility. She could make better decisions. She had more control of her own practice. She personally had the business with standards, and she had more consistency in how she operated daily. She wasn't like this. She was doing her best every single day with control. And she had those hard conversations, and she recognized that that really helped her. Because when you're under pressure, that's some great examples. It reveals standards, it reveals the gaps in your operating system, and stopping with the moving forward at the high level we have those gaps. So here's the question, think about your own practice. Where are you currently relying on legal knowledge, experience, or you come under a longer, personally holding everything together yourself? We think about that for a moment. Where could you have better systems, higher standards, better habits? Would you improve your way of operating? Because that's the first shift, that preparation. Not just preparing the legal work, preparing who you are, how you want to be, so you can do your best work. And preparation is where confidence starts. It's the work that you're going to show up in what you're on. But eventually preparation ends and the movement starts, the action starts, the movement starts. If you're on a demanding or a high conflict or emotional client, and you're part of a team where you're disengaged and overwhelmed, not doing budgets, those are the conversations, sliding, and unexpected want to show up, and everything feels like a and in those moments, it's not about what you know about food. It's where the second skill becomes really important. This is where your preparation is put into practice. Because when pressure arrives in practice, it changes people. It changes people. Mistakes increase, emotions increase, capacity increases. And this is where how you perform becomes really different. And it takes us years as lawyers to develop our technical skills and experience. Suppliers, argue our positions, assess risk, solve legal problems, all very important skills. And that's the other. The question is, how much time have you deliberately spent developing the skills to generate in your own mission? Because they are very important skills. Knowing where your points are. Before we operating in a highly under pressure, both are needed to be a high performer. Because when the client becomes emotional, and a counterpart becomes aggressive, and mediation becomes difficult, people get stuck in their positions. The team member with every form of our communities. And you're expected to make a decision and you don't have any information. The workload keeps increasing. Your reputation every day feels like it's on the line. So in these moments, the question isn't, what am I going to do? The question is, how do I improve myself? And most lawyers were trained to do our legal skills and experience. And then if something isn't working and they're not sure, well, we're told to research more or focus on the argument, find a weakness in the other side's case, or work longer and harder, or apply that legal experience, explain it again. Sometimes that's the only thing. But sometimes, and more often than not, the problem can be solved by having a legal knowledge and experience. The people who not only know legal knowledge and experience are important. So sometimes the challenge is we're dealing with the person who we're dealing with the client, something which is certain stress, unsure. Well, they're very defensive, but they're advice on they're being combative, aggressive. Everybody being in a situation isn't going to be able to reach the truth. We're not going to deal with this. And I was sort of familiar with mediation and also with consulting programs. In mediation, as you know, everybody comes in really complete. They've got their legal arguments, they've prepared their position papers, they've got their evidence, they've got formulated their view of risk as a certain claim. They've formulated their view of what they do. They have a relationship settlement, all of that really. But most times, the things that are stopping resolution isn't for legal arguments or lack of knowledge of the law. It's a human factors. Someone felt his hand. Someone needed to save face. Someone who could do a verdict. Someone was protecting their status of their income. Someone was responding emotionally. Someone was worried having to react if this. Someone was claiming on their internal reputation not good. A lot of times people need protection. And in those times, when we're confronted with people who are showing us very is applying legal pressure is where we improve our research. In fact, applying legal pressure makes people more defensive of legal work. What do you think about bringing a stress ball too hard? You squeeze it harder and it doesn't go soft, does it? Resist it more. And people under pressure work exactly the same way. Push, and not push that hard. So the skill isn't add more force or add more pressure to an already pressurized situation. It's knowing how to respond while influencing yourself, lives, the other side, and the outcome. It's a skill, it's a learnable skill. So the skill is knowing how are you going to operate in those difficult, challenging situations. How are you going to listen? How are you going to communicate? How are you going to influence? How are you going to lead? How are you going to stay composed? Manage your emotions and your thinking. How are you going to help people move forward in a situation that's difficult? Because that's the point. Legal expertise doesn't get you into any of the things we need to reach in the weeks. And how do you perform one way to this? Your results, your reputation that you will have leading those rooms. So, have you developed the skills required to perform operating highly under pressure to the same degree as you've developed your legal expertise and experience? Because for most counselors and seminarians, which will be extraordinary in the And some because they don't really section of what they do, but they think they don't have time to develop these skills. They all they need are leader skills for explore. These skills don't count anymore, or ask for help, or that's seen as weakness, or maybe it could use connection, or they have to keep up with perfect facade. All the while, the 50% why? Because the profession hasn't traditionally rewarded and developed either expertise, experience, knowledge, that's what it's how you operate, and you do what you do is largely a chance. And not the same as that nice to have already accomplished. That's what takes you apart. And it's not just about learning skills and all sorts of things, without being intentional, everything about it. It's about having the ability to choose. How do you behave when you're pushing yourself? What habits you have? What systems will you build? Instead of allowing whatever is happening to happen, to dictate how you operate. Because pressure pulls people into what's comfortable with all their business. So, for example, very good character strength reaction for how you operate under pressure. If you overthink, if you second guess, if you're full of self-doubt, that's how you operate under pressure. If one person avoids what's uncomfortable, trying new things, that's how you operate. If you're a person tries to control everything, how you operate. If you're a person who has fear, everybody has fears, but to come over those fears, you can manage, fancy, messy, so that you show a side of you that tries to cover any system or habits that you don't have in place. That's how you operate. If you're a person who tries to do the right muscle, or that you have to sacrifice everything you fully in order to do the difference is how things they don't feel pressure to children. They develop the skills and the systems and the habits to stay in control, focus, consistent. So they stand in structure performance better in the personal life and the international. And this is a question of practice because all of this, what I'm talking about, the performance skills, it affects being residuals. The fault when clients have trust and value your judgment. It affects how people respond to it and the working people as they make the working condition. You have the ability to read challenging people situations when you have the ability to keep proper decisions so that they don't have more expensive labour. It affects your reputation. It affects your efficiency, productivity. When your teams engage, when your clients trust you, and that ultimately affects your life. And this is a deposit for which you will learn to do. And now, with your performance, not just you learning, your team is watching, your clients are watching, your colleagues are watching, your judge is watching, the educator is watching, everybody is watching. Not just your meeting skills, but how you perform. So what do you ask yourself? Where does the pressure Where does pressure change the way you operate? Is it one, this is a preparation gap? The systems and standards that I need have been built in the first place? Or is it two, this is a performance gap? Yes, I have systems in place, they exist, but they don't really stand up and was it one or is it two? Because that's where the work is. Not following standards, not becoming someone completely different. But developing the skills so you can consistently perform and operate at the standard that you're expected to see. That's performance. You control, focus, consistently operate at high level. Now, a quick reminder before we move into the final part, if you haven't given any comments, please do that now and make it easy for me to find you because I'll choose one person who stays till the end and I'll offer them provide this 30 minutes online for free. And this leads us to the third part, which is leadership. And I want to be clear about what I mean when I speak about leadership. Leadership is not a title, it's not a position, it's not something to know leadership. It's not waiting for somebody to give you a title. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions about leadership in the world. That it starts when your role changes and you get a title. When you become a time, when you embarrass, when you see, when you become responsible for a team. Leadership is not something that is given to you. Think about a lighthouse, not a title. The lighthouse doesn't announce itself or argue, I have authority to be here. That's a great position. People, ships orient around it because it's consistently there, doing the same thing, regardless of the weather. That's leadership without a title. It's not a ranking given, but it's a standard you hold yourself to, whether or not anybody else is watching. It's the same with different title. People usually work out really quickly how you would work. The title, hey, look, that is really when they walk into a difficult situation, they're under pressure. What happens? We can trust their judgment, they engage in hard conversations regularly, problems get addressed early, standards speak, they're respected, they're trusted, just their leaders do is also the I think it would be 100%. These skills, the only 50% don't happen because they don't have a title. It happens because they realise, high-performing leaders realise that now they have a title, they 50% rate them the use of this experience. Now they're expected to move. Now they're expected to operate. Now they're expected to be responsible for other people. And every lawyer in practice starts looking at most of the legal clients to uncertainty through positions, but there's no certain right answer. Through mystery, through conflict, through moments where people see things differently. And you leave with the around you, you influence it. You questions you ask, the way you communicate, the standards that you demonstrate, who you enforce. The behaviors that you follow, you control that will tell them what kind of leader you are, how you live, what culture you live. That tells them what leader you are. But here's the challenge. Most lawyers and barristers, as I keep saying, spend 30 years developing legal expertise. But the skills that they need to lead and determine how they are going to lead. Chairs, watch others, follow them, and they have no formal training either, or they use trial and error, in the hope that there's clean advice. The skills required to lead yourself, your team, your clients, your conversations, even your mediations, to lead a mediation, and the people around you are often left to you to learn on your own. And that trial and error is often the most important part of learning. And leaving to wings of knowledge doesn't create better leadership. Well, often what happens is you take on what you saw before, you learn from it for business. But practicing to learn leadership skills is the difference between being a technical expert and being a leader. Think about the best leaders you've brought to. Probably wasn't the title, it wasn't the position they got, it was because of they knew more than everybody else in that application. But that wasn't the reason. It was how you experience working with them. You like the way they looked, what they interacted, communicated, how they actually feel working with them, what they feel of those different moments. You have to build them up to make them learn so much. Because as you become more senior, your impact is no longer limited to your original experience. It's also determined by the standard of your thinking, your decisions, your communication, interaction, your performance, because that impacts the performance of those around you. How you encourage people, how you get people and influence people to come on board with your vision. Because your reputation as a leader is no longer built only on the body of your own work. It's built on the impact that you have on the people around you, the situations you live. The difficult clients, how you manage to uncertainty, how to challenge you with your advice. The hard conversations within the departments that make a difference. What you tolerate, what you demonstrate, how you make decisions that are critical to what you mention, how you develop future. The problems that no one is impacted because you're developing leaders, not just influence. It starts with how you operate. Understand that it's your system, it's your decision, it's your communication. Because the way you operate with your leader doesn't impact you, it impacts everybody around you and you're a person who listens to learn. You're not just complaining, because complaining versus listening will never have a else. How do you challenge people when they want people's standards? How do you handle difficult people around us? How do you help people to raise their game, become a great players? When they play in the secret field, if you create a secret culture, it will make a great performance. Yeah, it's too hard. And that's what you do. You don't think you can have a relationship. Show us your time. It's about improving how you operate, how you prepare, how you lead yourself and the people around you. And over time, what creates top performing thousands of lawyers are these leadership skills, helping them lead effectively strengths. So have you developed your leadership skills to the same level as you've developed your legal skills? Are you presenting the role in place? Leadership part do you have that in place? Or are you a leader at a loss and you don't really know how to lead, how to get listening, how to be that leader that everybody trusts? Because they're different skill sets. You can be technically excellent and still struggle to have difficult conversations. You can be highly experienced and still have that habit of reacting when something doesn't go right. You can have incredible knowledge bank and still create one of the performing teams. Not because you're not good at what you do more, because leadership trust and leadership requires you to have a very good system. And like any skill, it has to be learned and developed. And I saw this really when I consulted one law firm. It wasn't a firm that was looking at expertise or experience, they cared about their clients. I wanted a firm to have a reputation that stood out as the best. And after working with them, what stood out was what they said. It wasn't, thank you so much. We learned how to advocate well, or we got a better legal strategy, or we learned how to dial out, or no, it was none of that. It was, we had the support to grow, and we desperately needed this opportunity to stop and take stock. It's had profound effect. It was, I would describe the impact of my decision making and future success as a leader as huge. It was, I've been assisted in holding others accountable in a way that will not derail relationships and how we can bring about an approach in this particular. Like many high achievers, the challenge wasn't about their capabilities. It's about how they operated and lived individually. When people are focused only on the technical work, they haven't been trained to lead in creative problems. They haven't been trained to be able to handle the problems that create problems. Because there are no different events that need to be planned on this time. There are no different expectations. There are no different communication styles. There are no different assumptions. There are no different visions, direction, and what excellence looks like. And all of the problems that arise, if they're not addressed, even expert leaders can start looking at the essential about success. Nobody in that law firm needed to get better at work. They were already good at work. The real question was, how do we lead ourselves and how do we lead each other and our teams better? How do we challenge each other without damaging relationships? How do we understand different perspectives and see situations, not get stuck in the fight we have to argue about? How do we create the standards that we want across the whole thing? How do we lead through change? How do we come together on vision? One of the biggest shifts we realised is not actually what I wanted to vision for. They care about the same things. They wanted even more success. They wanted to lead their first rate of success and have it perform well. But they didn't have the skills to lead. But they needed to understand each other, to be able to problem solve, to be able to have those conversations, to be able to establish and build skills in their leadership career. And it's developing the skills that allow you and the people around you to operate at your best at a higher level without being on all the time. And being valued for who you are and what you do as a trusted leader. Because the best Pharisees and lawyers, they don't just raise their own standards. They raise the standard for everybody around them who comes in contact with them. They build leadership skills. These aren't nice to haves. This is what gives them the advantage so that they can do their role at a high standard. That's the leadership reputation. It's a separate reputation from their legal one. Built on different skills. And it's one that clients, teams, colleagues, people that come in contact with them feel and see every single day. When things become difficult, they want them to move because they trust their judgment. They look to their advice, they respect them, they understand what they want. So what we started today, you may have thought that getting trust and a reputation was one thing. Built on your legal expertise, your technical experience. And hopefully by now you can see it's actually two things. You've got your legal reputation within your built or building, and you've also got your operating reputation. And that's forming right now, whether you're building it on purpose or not. The lawyers become the people others trust in the legal. They don't have just 50% of their role developed, their legal expertise. They deliberately built the second part of your role that impacts your reputation, impacts your ability to trust. And the question is, what are you doing to build that other people instead of your role? On purpose? What chance? How trying what are you doing? Because high performance in law isn't accidental. It's built. From your systems, your habits, your standing, your thinking, your behaviors, your decisions, your communication, your conflict resolution skills, your leadership. That's why I created this. Because after years working in litigation, mediation, leadership and high performance advising and consulting, I've seen the same patterns again and again. The barristers and lawyers who operate at the highest level don't leave these performance skills to chance, or leadership skills to chance. They don't rely on building more legal knowledge and experience, yes, necessary, but rely solely on that to be able to make them successful and qualify lawyers across the country. They develop the skills for how they perform and operate in the environment. And that's the work that we'll be doing here. Looking at the practical skills behind how barristers and senior lawyers and law firms prepare, perform, and lead at a high level. So they come from performance. Because the lawyers who build the strongest reputations from here and are trusted by everybody around them will not only be known for their what they know, but really their successful experience. They'll be trusted because of how they operate and perform under pressure. So you've got a choice in front of you. You can stay the same, and let's take a look at that. You've got your legal reputation, keep growing that. But your operating and performing system, which impacts your reputation, your judgment, everything, your leadership, that's what you change. It's not even or you can shoot how you operate. And you become more efficient, greater satisfaction in your life, being more in control, building those same cultures, building yourself as a high performer, then doing your high performing team to maintain those high performing and have the solutions, look at and have the solutions to the problems that you're facing on a daily basis. Your legal reputation got you to where you are now. The question now is whether you build your operating reputation with the same intention. Will lead you to chance or whatever happens on the day under pressure. So if you want practical tools to build those skills, all I'm asking, if you thought this was useful today, is subscribe to the channel. Because that's what I'll be sharing every week. Thanks for joining me.